Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley in Washington, D.C. People may know the film version of Dickens' Christmas Carol, and that is the Alistair Sim British version of, I believe, 1951. And you may remember the scene where Scrooge's partner, Jacob Marley, is on his deathbed. And Scrooge comes to visit him after business hours, of course. He's not in a hurry. He's got to make all the money in his counting house. So Scrooge visits Marley in his sick room on his deathbed, and Marley motions. Marley can hardly speak. He's moribund. He motions to Scrooge to come closer, and with this fading voice, is in his death rattle, he says to Scrooge, "Save yourself. Save yourself. It's not too late." And Scrooge can't understand. He says, "Jacob, what are you saying?" He's irritated. He doesn't really want to hear him. Save yourself. Now, I thought of this concerning the death of Richard Holbrooke this week. Holbrooke is reported to have told either a Pakistani surgeon at George Washington University Hospital or an Egyptian doctor who is the personal physician of Hillary Clinton, "You've got to end the Afghan war." Now, "You've got to end the Afghan war," says Holbrooke, and these indeed are likely to have been his last words, the last thing he said on earth, because after this, he was then wheeled into surgery, 21 hours of surgery, not clear whether he ever regained consciousness, and then he died of this ruptured aorta. But the State Department is trying to spin this, saying, well, this was just ironic banter. They told him, you've got to calm down. And he said, well, then you've got to end the Afghan war for me because I'm so busy, I'm so wrapped up, I've got to get back to my work. I don't think so. There might be that having looked back over his life, as Marley did in that scene in Dickens, Holbrooke may have been overtaken by the enormity of what he had done, the chain that he had forged in life, which he was now destined to wear in death, as happened to Marley and many others in that famous window scene in The Christmas Carol. Remember that Holbrooke had been part of the U.S. foreign policy apparatus since 1962 when he joined the Foreign Service. And, of course, he was part of the revolving door between the State Department and Wall Street. I believe Holbrooke's address in Wall Street was often Lehman Brothers. What it was in the past couple of years, I'm not so sure, but I guess he joined the government before Lehman went under. So he was a part of the Lehman Brothers wing, the Peter Peterson wing, if you will. It was Holbrooke who took part in the Vietnam War, and most notably, it was Holbrooke who advocated and pushed through the policy of bombing Serbia in 1999, the 2 to 3 month bombing campaign in the spring of 1999, which did tremendous damage to Serbia, blew up the bridges along the Danube. As I've had occasion to say, one of the greatest acts of historical vandalism in modern European history. The first time that NATO had ever attacked anybody, the transition of NATO from a purely defensive regional alliance to an offensive, intrusive, worldwide police force, as we now see in Afghanistan, things that are way beyond the original sphere of the North Atlantic Treaty, which was delineated above all by the U.S., because the U.S. did not want to get involved in defending British, French, Belgian, or anybody else's colonies outside of the North Atlantic region. But that has all been abolished. We now have NATO out-of-area deployments. That's what Afghanistan is. Holbrooke, therefore, symbolizes many of these factors, the sort of Siamese twin relationship between Wall Street and the foreign policy establishment. These people are drawn from the same families. Their careers go back and forth. This is not just Holbrooke, but many, many others. And then that Holbrooke was always the advocate for bombing, intervention, essentially a policy of wild aggression, interventionism, and always with this self-righteous, hypocritical posture of U.S. moral superiority, dressed up with double standards. One standard for the U.S., one standard for the others, and that's the constant. So Holbrook, however, if we can hope, we know from Dante, for example, that if you repent at the last minute, right? I think it's Guido da Montefeltro in the Purgatory. He had a terrible life, but at the last moment he repented. So maybe Holbrook has saved himself from the chain that he forged in life, as Dickens would have seen it. But that now comes in the middle of this Afghanistan policy review. It's maybe that's ironic too, that his death comes just as the apparatus was gearing up for the long-touted, long-awaited December 2010 policy review on the Afghanistan war. And what have they done? Well, they basically punted. They've lied and they've punted. And it's now clear that everything will stay in place until 2014 at the very least. Remember the July 2011 deadline announced by Obama for the beginning of some kind of pullout. And we've heard very, very cynical policy people on NPR and elsewhere saying, well, maybe that'll be one soldier per week or one soldier per month. It will be totally cosmetic when it comes, if it does come in July 2011, and it's not going to be serious. The war will go on. Obama has now settled back in to the Bush mode of endless war in Afghanistan. And remember, of course, that he's extended it into Pakistan, to say nothing of Yemen, to say nothing of Somalia, and all of these countries around Iran now have larger or smaller U.S. military contingents that are there. The attack on Iran has not gotten much attention over the past several months, but the capabilities are still there, so that when the intent emerges, this becomes quite possible. So the left liberals, again, have to look back 35 months after they gave their hearts to Obama, almost 36 months since my first warning of January 7th, 2008, that Obama was a warmonger was the main theme of that, based on his advisors. Don't listen to his the noises coming out of his mouth. Look at the people around him, and you can read all of this. You can see this leaflet in Obama, the Postmodern Coup, the Making of a Manchurian Candidate. That was distributed in Manchester, New Hampshire that day. It was the first warning. It was given to the entire John Edwards campaign bus and quite a few other campaign operations in Manchester, New Hampshire. The left liberals now really have to look back, and I would urge them to do so and search their consciences. What have you learned from this? Obama was your hero, and now you see that he has betrayed you on this tax issue. He's betrayed you on the entitlements issue. He has betrayed you on the question of health care reform. There's no Medicare for all. There's no single payer. What you have is not even this public option, whatever that was. This is a public coercion of people to buy insurance companies from rotten insurance companies. And now Obama is delivering endless war. So, dear left liberals, what have you learned from this experience? And I guess you'd have to say, don't give your heart away. Now, a lot of these left liberals, ironically enough, and we'll talk about it in a minute, are giving their heart away to somebody even less plausible than Obama, and that would be Julian Assange. These are people who don't have very many heroes, and when they lose one, they've got to find one, and any dregs that lies around is likely to be chosen. We'll be back on World Crisis Radio.